The Jersey Swap podcast is sponsored by Apollo Home. Folks, it's never too late to get your furnace checked out by Apollo Home. And if you're ready for spring, give them a call and they'll take a look at your air conditioner to make sure you're ready for the warmer weather. For a limited time, take advantage of Apollo's spring deal, a new AC unit for as low as $99 per month. Stay cold when it's hot, stay hot when it's cold with Apollo Home. Give them a call or visit them at apollohome.com. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Jersey Swap podcast. We use this time for inspection of the opposition, but it feels like the opposition might have their own inspection of us. They've figured us out so far. FC Cincinnati has had 3 away matches, has not been able to win any of them. It definitely feels like a flaw in the defense, but Pat Noonan has one more away match to right the ship. This week, it's against Toronto FC, who we've faced already and have unfortunately lost 1-0 at home. So just a little bit more misery to pile onto our pile of misery. Let's decode the results with Toronto. We have with us this week he writes for TFC Republic. He's been doing this since 2007. Welcome to the show tonight, John Molinaro. How are you doing tonight, John?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
Doing very well. Doing very well. I'm hoping we'll be doing very well next week. You found us at a good time for our losing streak. Hopefully it doesn't continue as it does. I wanted to get you on just because you seem to really have your ear to the music up there in Toronto. I sort of wanted to pick your brain a little bit, how you got started involving TFC. It feels like a labor of love, or has it always been that way?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as a soccer fan in Canada. Being of an Italian household, it was kind of hard to not be. And then when I got into journalism, I just naturally gravitated to sports. I was writing for Sun Media and then CBC, which is the sort of Canadian equivalent of the BBC in England. And then when I went to Sportsnet, which is one of the 2 leading sort of all sports networks in Canada, it was as their sort of full-time sort of soccer reporter. And so between CBC and Sportsnet, that's when I started really covering TFC Republic TFC in an in-depth way when they first came into the league in 2007. Ended up getting laid off at Sportsnet and still working in soccer for a little bit. But then in 2000, and I guess it would be 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic, quit my full-time job and launched TFC Republic. TFCRepublic.ca, which is essentially it's a pay model website where it's just full-time coverage of Toronto FC, and the response has been pretty good. I really thought after a year that I would just be shutting it down because I wouldn't have enough paid subscribers, but we're about to celebrate our 5th anniversary on Sunday. So I'm really grateful and humbled by all the support I've got. And people seem to have always appreciated the coverage that I provided Toronto FC during my days at the CBC and Sportsnet, and that sort of appreciation is carried over to my time with TFC Republic, and it's probably the most fun I've had in the last 5 years. So it's been a worthwhile venture.
Yeah, I think the one reason why I wanted to continue this podcast is I think I value independent media, independent journalism just as much as I think the regular fan. And so getting people like yourself, like many of the podcasts all over Canada, all over the United States, even some branches of Mexico, we like to have you guys on, not only so we can pick your brain, but also see what it was that got you interested in the sport. And I think one of the questions I've also been asking, we've had Toronto and Montreal guest hosts come in. We've spoken to them about the growth of soccer in Canada, especially with the World Cup coming through. What's your impression of Canada sort of as a soccer country as we go into this vital period?
Yeah, the growth has been really incredible. When you think about, I think, never has, the Canadian men's national team had players playing at the highest levels of European club football than it does right now. When you think about the likes of Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich, Jonathan David with Juventus, Tejan Buchanan at Villarreal, Stefan Eustachio at FC Porto before he was loaned out to LAFC. There's several other, Alistair Johnston at Celtic. The list is endless. On top of that, you have, some of the best players in MLS being Canadian. You have, the Canadian Premier League, our own domestic division, which is now in its 8th year. And on the women's side too, you have the women's national team that has won, Olympic gold medal, and back-to-back Olympic bronze medals, and the launch of the Northern Super League, our own domestic division last year. And interest in the game is at an all-time high in Canada, and especially with the World Cup coming up. So, yeah, the growth of the game has been really incredible. It's always been a strong sport in terms of participation levels. In fact, there's more kids playing soccer in Canada than there are hockey, which is, I think, quite unfathomable for a lot of people to get their heads around, because I think they just naturally think of Canada as a hockey nation. So it's always been, from a participation level, been massive in Canada. But now, in terms of sort of the mainstream interest and media coverage and just general fandom and growth of the game, it's at the professional level, it's never been at a better moment than it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, Dane St. Clair just ripped up
Oh, yeah.
the records last year. He was, I think, one of the main reasons that Minnesota United went as far as they did, and why he got such a big deal going down to Inter Miami, taking his talents to South Beach. I'm impressed with the game up there in the Canadian lands up there. I've got family up there as well, so anytime that I get the chance to talk about like Halifax Wanderers, I love them up there. They're my team for the Premier League up there. So anytime I get a chance to talk about Canadian soccer, it's great to get into.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's kind of a nice time to be covering the game and involved in the game up here right now.
Yeah, and it might not be so great, going from winter into spring, but Montreal just got through their own long away trip, finally getting back home. So it'd be great to see how things go there. But let's talk. We're not going to talk about your rivals. We'll talk about Toronto. They are on our radar this week. Let's flash back a little bit to just a few weeks ago. Toronto starts with 2 losses on the road against Dallas and Vancouver before they faced us. We're just looking at those first 2 games. Do you feel there were any positives that you were able to glean from those results?
Not many. I mean, I was on the road for both of those games. So I was in Dallas when they lost 3-2, and then when they lost 3-0 the next week against Vancouver. And I have to say that opening 45 minutes at BC Place against the Whitecaps was probably one of the worst first halves I've seen from them in recent memory. Just timid and scared and lifeless and flat, and it was really embarrassing. So much so that Raheem Edwards, the right fullback, issued a public apology to the traveling fans who made it all the way to Vancouver from Toronto after the game. So there wasn't much to take away from that game. I think the Dallas game, it was 3-2. It was a lot closer. But again, you can't read too much into that because it was their first game of the season, and they were still working some things out. Daniel Shalloway came off the bench and I thought impressed. And so you kind of got a glimpse of why TFC traded for him, why they went to such lengths to get him from Sporting Kansas City. So that was a positive. But overall, I mean, those first 2 games, they didn't look good. And I think the general consensus, if you were to ask TFC fans at the time, that it seemed to be an indication that this was going to be another long season for the Reds. But they've since turned things around. They're trending in the right direction. And it has to be said that it all kind of started with the game at TQL Stadium last month,
Yeah.
which was just a remarkable result, the first time they've ever won at TQL Stadium. And it just was really sort of the turning point of this mini turnaround that they're having right now.
Yeah, I think if you stretch it all the way back to the USL days, this is actually Toronto's first win in Cincinnati, period. I think
Well, they did win one at was the previous stadium.
at Nippert Stadium.
Yeah, they had won at Nippert Stadium, but they had never won at TQL Stadium.
Oh, right.
So, but just like I said, an incredible result when you think about it, because I was at TQL Stadium, and I remember talking to Laurel, the local reporter there, and she was asking me what I thought, and I gave Toronto absolutely no chance of winning the game, because I just thought, based on what I saw through the first 2 games, I had no reason to believe that they would, get a result there. But pleasantly surprised, and as I said, they've kind of used that game as a turning point and a building block since then.
You did bring up Daniel Shalhoub,
Mhm.
ace at Sporting Kansas City for years. Picked up, was it maybe right after the start of the season?
Right before.
Um, or I thought that was a key move. We're going to talk about the other key moves, but I thought that was the one that started the domino starting. I think he's a very good presence there on the wing. Um, I guess what from your perspective, what has he provided the squad in the attack?
Directness. I think that's been the main thing. I think too often this when you look at how the team played last year, it was very labored and very sort of predictable in terms of their build-up play and going forward. He brings a level of directness that has been very refreshing and much needed. And not afraid to take opposing players on, can run at opposing defenders and kind of send them off balance. Can play a variety of positions, whether it's out wide, either on the left or right wing, or through the middle as a striker. So I think he brings a directness and an attacking variety that to TFC that desperately needed, especially last year when they had one of the worst attacking records in MLS.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys got a steal when he was brought on the team. I looked at him, I said, he's got a lot of spots that you can be put into. And if there's a time where like Jordi Mihailovic, who might not be playing this week, if he's down for a few weeks, I think Shalhoub can step in and be that attacking talisman, perhaps. But he's more dependable on both sides of the wings. I felt that you guys got a Swiss Army knife when you picked him up.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Robin Fraser is really big on him, and he's already sort of seen that. We've already seen that he can play in a variety of different positions and can fill different roles. So, and I think that's really important in the modern game, right? I mean, I think you need guys like that, especially with ML experience, who can play in different spots. Especially when you consider TFC's history of injuries over the last couple of seasons. They have just not been healthy. They've lost so many guys to for countless games that it's really sort of absurd. And so when you have someone like Shalhoub who can play multiple roles, multiple positions, I think that helps ease the injury crisis that they often go through.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a mini one right now. We can talk a little bit about that. And it looks like it might affect the defense a little bit too. But one of the good things, one of the shining things you can talk about this defense is that in those first two games, they had the -4 goal differential. They led in 6-2. But since then, they've straightened it out. I mean, the offense has certainly carried things, but 1 goal per game since then. It feels like maybe starting from this Cincinnati game that the defense has figured things out.
I think so. I still think they're still in the process of kind of figuring things out because they played with 3 at the back, they played with 4 at the back, they kind of played with a fluid 5-back formation where the 2 sort of fullbacks essentially become attacking wingbacks when they're in possession. So I'm not sure Robin Fraser knows what is his best sort of formation yet. I think he's still trying to figure that out. But in the meantime, they've shown that they can have a little tactical flexibility, and it's something that they've benefited from because they've had to play different formations against different type of opponents. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Do you feel that I mean, with this undefeated streak you guys have in place since this match that you took us down 1-0 in our place, 2 wins, a draw, and then of course the win against us? Do you feel that this is evidence that Fraser's scheme is working, or is it or is it a matter of also the front office picking out the right talent?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, I give credit to Robin because I think he's had something to do with the current form that the club is playing on. But also give a lot of credit to GM Jason Hernandez. He has done a lot of heavy lifting over the last 2 or 3 international or transfer windows, especially since last summer. When you think about, he had to buy out the contracts of Italian DPs Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi, which was no easy task because they were on guaranteed mega rich deals. And he had to convince MLSE, the club's owners, to sort of pony up to just pay them to go away. Then they had to splash big to get Georgi Mihailovic.
Mm-hmm.
And, they bring in guys like Benjamin Kusevic and Daniel Shalhoub, Walker Zimmerman, and then splash, a reported $27 million in transfer fees to bring in Josh Sargent on top of whatever wages that they're going to pay him, which is probably going to be multi-million as well. So, but he's been smart. I mean, I thought he's brought in some key players to sort of address their sort of, sort of major issues. And what I like about him is that he's brought in players in the right sort of age slash MLS experience, right? When you look at guys like Josh Sargent, Jose Cifuentes, another player that he brought in last year, Daniel Shalaway. These are guys who are in their 20s, but who have a lot of experience. So they're in that sort of sweet spot in terms of age where great experience, but not yet, but still with plenty of gas left in the tank. So I think he's been quite wise in the way that he's built, the roster with sort of these, perfectly aged reinforcements.
And he's got also, I think, the right talent that he's kept there. Richie Larea, Jonathan Osorio, local guys that you can really lean on in their early 30s. But that's also evidence that they've stuck around the system, that they've earned trust to remain in this Toronto roster. But then you're bringing in, like you said, the likes of Josh Sargent, younger, hungrier, but not without experience. Looking at him, he's finally had 90 minutes, Josh Sargent. Looking at how he's played, how has his fitness looked? I mean, do you feel that he's really ready to match the speed of this team?
I think so. I mean, when he first made his first appearance, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, was off the bench for 20 minutes. You have to remember, he hadn't played since January 3rd or 4th. So it was more than 2-3 months. So, I don't care who it is. It's going to take a little bit of time for anyone to sort of get back into match fitness after that length of time. The next game, he played 45 minutes, started, but played 45 minutes. And then last week went the full 90 before being subbed out right before injury time, had a goal and an assist. So, yeah, I think he's slowly but surely, kind of coming into form. I think it would have been really unfair and harsh to expect him to kind of storm out of the gate right from the get-go just because of essentially that major time off that he had. But, in the limited time that he has played, he's impressed. I mean, I've been impressed with his pressing up front, being that sort of first line of defense. He works really hard, both on and off the ball, serves as a good target man, is just relentless in his pursuit of the ball when he's not in possession. And I just think overall he gives them a clear point of reference up front. So I think he's been, a great addition. And, now that he has his first goal, can't wait to see what he does. I suspect that the floodgates, for Toronto FC are probably going to open now.
I'm sure that also the United States team is hoping that those floodgates open up. It seems the number 9 position's always been something of flux, that no one's really been able to put their flag in the spot. I mean, what aspect of his game do you feel he needs to brush up in order to be that guy on the United States team?
I think he just has to be clinical in front of goal. I mean, he was certainly clinical when he was at Norwich, right? But I think he now that he's in MLS and all eyes are on him, he's got a very short window of opportunity to impress Mauricio Pochettino to get onto the national team, right? I mean, there's not, the next games that they're going to play, the U.S. are going to be in June, right before the World Cup. So, what he does over this next, whatever it is, 8 or 9 games with TFC are going to matter tremendously in terms of, determining his World Cup fate. So if he can go on a tear, if he can kind of score on a regular basis and become, elite level goal scorer in MLS, then I would certainly think that would improve his chances of making the World Cup roster for the Americans.
Yeah, not too much time for him, but an opportunity is there. I mean, you don't want to say that with one of your fellow journeymen, Patrick Ajiman, going down at Derby County with an ACL issue. You don't want to see that, but it does present opportunity. So maybe he takes advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why he came to MLS. I mean, for family reasons and all that, but I think he kind of understood that this was going to provide him with one final opportunity to get back into the good graces with the U.S. national team, because it's been a while since he's really, been at top form for the U.S. I mean, I think it's the last time he scored even for the U.S. was in 2024. So, this is, as I said, it's really his last sort of window of opportunity to make a good impression and fight his way onto the World Cup squad.
Well, like I said, he's got his opportunities. The Jersey Swap podcast is also sponsored by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a Cincinnati physical therapy and fitness business that helps people of all ages stay active and fit. They also work with local MLS and MLS Next Pro athletes. And they're the official physical therapy provider of the Manu Ledesma Academy UPSL team. See how they can elevate your health and fitness at gobeyondexercise.com. Looking at how Toronto is going to possibly set up, I've gotten this one from the last matchup, the 3-2 win over Colorado. A lot of red cards in that game.
Yes.
The important one on the Toronto side is Raheem Edwards losing. I was it in the 50-something minute, being taken off.
Yeah, second yellow card.
Yeah. So there is going to be a hole somewhere. I'm looking at the defense in particular. I think Zimmerman came off early in that one as well. Was that more because of the red card, or was there any injury concern?
No. So he was complaining of calf tightness. So he came off, I think, like in the 60th minute or something like that. He didn't train on Tuesday. The team was off on Wednesday. The team trained today, but I wasn't there because it wasn't open to the media. So we'll have a clearer idea tomorrow when Friday's training session is open to the media as to whether he can play or not. But, if he's not, then it becomes an interesting question. What do they do, right? Do they go to three center backs? Do they does Kusevich kind of become that sort of anchor in the middle? And then, with Raheem Edwards picking up the 2 yellow cards, he's obviously suspended. So that, I think, certainly offers a chance for, the Brazilian fullback Mateus Pereira, who came off the bench against Colorado to make his MLS debut and looked really good. I think that certainly opens up the opportunity for him to start at, the left fullback spot against Cincinnati on Saturday.
Do we perhaps see St. Louis come in there? Monlouis, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if Zimmerman isn't sort of ready to go, and I suspect that if there's any sort of doubt, that they would sort of be rather cautious and be conservative about it and bench him, and just bring in Zane Monlouis, who has who's played this year, and he's a good number, sort of 3 or 4 center back when needed, and I can see him playing alongside Kusevich in the middle of the defense.
The other interesting setup, and once again, this comes down to health. Georgi Mihailovic has been out for the past few games. I would assume that he might be close to see if he comes back or not.
Yeah, so he played 2 weeks ago, but he came on as a sub, but did not play against Colorado last week. And we only found out afterwards from Robin Fraser that he was dealing with a pelvis injury, something that he's been actually dealing with since the preseason. Didn't train on Tuesday. We'll probably get a full idea, update on what the situation is on Friday. So, but if he doesn't go, I suspect Alonso Coelho will start in his place again, who I thought probably had one of his best games for Toronto last week against Colorado. He was absolutely outstanding. It was his corner kick that led to the winning goal from Josh Sargent, late in regulation time. And he's just a clever player, a really intelligent player with a high footballing IQ. Not the quickest, doesn't have the quickest turn of pace, but does have a quick brain. And, I think TFC could really benefit from him. He's not Georgi Mihailovic. Let's not sort of confuse the issue. And I think, if Mihailovic is out for any length of time, then that's a big blow for Toronto. But in the interim, I think guys like Coelho, Osorio, and Cifuentes can sort of come together in the aggregate almost and try to make up for, what you're missing when, Georgi Mihailovic is out.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that foursome in the middle. Those that aren't seeing it, maybe listening in audio, Jose Cifuentes, Coelho, Jonathan Osorio, Daniel Chaloui. It feels like that foursome in the middle is a lock, even with Mihailovic in the lineup. Do you feel that this is your lineup for the long haul?
I think so. I think Coelho probably loses his spot if Mihailovic is healthy, because Georgie is sort of their go-to midfield creator and orchestrator. But pretty much, I think those are sort of like, that's the midfield 3 or 4 when they're going to play that way, right? So yeah, it's not very far from the first team sort of midfield core of what Robin Fraser wants to go with this year.
Yeah, personally, I think Coelho is my X factor in this game. Looking at the FOTMob numbers, Josh Sargent was the man of the match according to their calculations. but Coelho was pretty close with the 8.1 there. He's my X factor there. I think if things go through him solidly to the likes of DeAndre Carr and Josh Sargent, I think you've got yourself a pretty decent attack that's going to scramble the FCC defense quite a bit. In this matchup, who do you feel your X factor would be?
I think Daniel Shalloway is someone who I think has consistently been among TFC's best players this season, starting from the game in Dallas when he came off the bench, against Cincinnati, obviously scoring the game winner. He's been just a model of sort of consistency pretty much throughout the season. And again, as I said before, he offers TFC, a little bit of a sense of directness that is sorely lacked the last couple of seasons. So I think he's the type of player that opposing players really hate to play against because he's just so direct and they just hate dealing with a guy that runs right at them like he does. And he plays with such fearlessness too. So I think he has the potential to be, someone who could hurt Cincinnati like he did, in that opening game, especially when, TFC, I thought looked particularly dangerous in moments of transition and on the counterattack.
And considering that Robin Fraser, as head coach for Colorado, saw him twice, maybe 3 times a year, yes. I'm sure he's like, thank God he's on my team this time around.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Let's flip the script a little bit. This isn't quite in the rundown, but looking at the FCC side, the Cincinnati side, who do you feel an X factor might have to be in order to beat this Toronto squad?
Well, it's hardly an original thought, but I would think Kevin Denke and Evander, who, I've been surprised by Evander this year. It's been a rather sort of quiet campaign. When I think of like last year when he was, amongst the top goal scorers in MLS and top, assist man as well. And, I don't think he has either a goal or assist this year.
He might have an assist, but he definitely has not found the goal himself.
Yeah. I appreciate he had the injury in the opening game, but he's been rather quiet. And just from talking to people in Cincinnati, I get the sense that he's been pretty open about his frustration. So he might be due for a big game. I think Denke, even though, it's 2 goals and an assist, which isn't bad, but you'd expect more from him. I think, a really exciting, vibrant footballer who, when he's at his best can be really dangerous and a real handful for opposing defenders to handle. So I think either one of them, I think would probably be due for a big game on Saturday at BMO Field.
I'm going to say mine is a surprising choice. It's going to be the goalkeeper. I think Roman Celentano, if he comes back, he's going to have a huge game. This defense feels shattered. I would not put it all on the goalkeeper, getting things right all the time, but it feels like something was wrong even before he got injured. If Celentano makes this game today, signs point towards he should be able to. If he starts, then I think he's an X factor just because he can change a game. We've seen that his goalkeeping abilities have kept the ball out of the net when we really need it happening. We need a Dane St. Clair performance out of him. None of these 4, 5, 6 goals going in on the road, and that some of that falls on the defense as well. We're probably not going to have Miles Robinson again. I think his groin issue is a little bit more tender than we expected it to be. So the defense is going to have to solidify. And if you've got a solid goalkeeper behind them helping pull the strings, then it should keep the damage to a minimum. We'll see. Our team has a few injuries of our own. Maybe just bringing it down here. I know I'm a homer when it comes to predicting these games, but how do you see this game turning out?
Probably, I would say a 1-0 win for Toronto. I just think, TFC have kind of been they seem to have turned a corner. I mean, it's back-to-back wins, which they haven't done since 2024. They're on a 4-game unbeaten run. They're unbeaten in their last 10 at BMO Field. And, I think just Cincinnati is really struggling this year, with just whatever it is, the 2 wins in 6 games, and they're conceding a lot. What is it, like 13 in the last 3 or something like that? It's like something ridiculous.
I need a third-hand account. That's all I know about that.
So I don't know. I think you can clearly hear the frustration when Pat Noonan talks. You clearly the frustration in Evander by his lack of goal scoring. So I think, Toronto may be getting them at just the right time, right? So I think, Toronto's playing with a lot of confidence. I think that come from behind win against Colorado last week when they didn't necessarily play their best was, a crazy game, but did a world of confidence for their further confidence, because it shows that, even when they're not at the best, they can still find a way to win. So I think all those things just lead me to believe that Toronto being able to pull out a victory on Saturday.
I'm hoping that we get a little bit of momentum on our side. I mean, I think we found that we do better when we counterattack. That if we take too much possession, I think sometimes we don't know what to do with it, and that sets us up for our own downfall on a counterattack. So if they can play wisely when they do have that possession, find those routes. We finally looked like there was some offense running through Pavel Buka. So let's hope that leads to something big, and it doesn't lead to these breakaways that kill us in the other direction. Right. I'm going to predict a draw, escape with a point. Okay. It feels like it needs to happen. And if they lose twice to Toronto in one season, it's going to be sort of a blemish that we don't want to see.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair enough. I can see that. I can see a draw too, just as easily. But
yeah, I'll keep it at that. All right. Well, it come to the end of our session here. I don't want to sound like a psychiatrist, but our time is up. I just want to thank you for joining us. Very busy week for everybody. So I'm going to open up the floor to you, John. Let me know, where can we find you? What are you working on? Anything of interest that would really bait our breath for the next time?
Yeah, so you can go to TFC Republic, which is at tfcrepublic.ca. I'll have, full in-depth coverage, post and pre and post-match coverage of Saturday's game against FC Cincinnati. You can also catch me, read my stuff at sportsnet.ca/soccer. Sportsnet is, as I said, one of the leading all sports networks in Canada, and I write about MLS for them on a regular basis. So those are probably the two best ways to to read some of what I'm writing.
All right. And check them out on social media as well. I think it's John Molinaro at X. Yeah, check him out. You can check us out as well. I mean, go to our website at cincinnatissoccertalk.com. You can support us. You can contact us. Why don't you check us out at feedback@cincinnatissoccertalk.com. Hopefully, we've got some good things coming up in the future. Plans that we're going to hopefully launch soon. You can listen to me every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's usually when I record. You can listen to our live show on Mondays. Go to our social media accounts at Cincy Soccer Talk as well. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky. And if you want, go to your favorite podcasting platform. We're there with recordings there as well. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of John Molinaro, who thank you very much for joining this week. On behalf of everybody here, make sure you keep your kit clean, but join us for 90 minutes every week. Thank you for putting that effort in. And thank you, John.
Sure.